last minute. This is our F1 news, always with a hint of laughter. All right. So apparently, before the Imola Grand Prix, Red Bull sent a memo to the FIA asking what is allowed. And apparently, whatever Red Bull wrote in, they knew that probably maybe that McLaren is doing that. So now the FIA had to send out a directive saying such and such is not allowed, such and such and such. I don't know the details of their directive, but the idea is that maybe what was put in their directive was a message to McLaren saying that if this shows up in Imola, you're going to get your ass fined, or you're going to get your ass, you're going to lose the race, because it's still weird why they were driving so slow. And the technical directive had two things. It was about plank wear, then about tire cooling and brake ducts. And it's strange that they sent that directive after Red Bull asked questions for clarification of the rules. So maybe Red Bull figured out that McLaren has a loophole. There's another theory that perhaps McLaren was even caught in Imola. No, not in Imola, in Miami. And Red Bull and the FIA wants to save their face, so they didn't suspend them. And then maybe coming into Imola, McLaren didn't have their loophole anymore, because it's sort of like, oh boy, you guys were cheating here, so you better get this shit off before Imola. So it seems like the question is it the case that directive that they sent heading into Imola, setting in they sent a directive, and there was something in that directive which McLaren knew they were breaking. So it was kind of like a forewarning, but they don't want to call them out by name because it was weird how they dropped off. I'm not sure if that's the case. It may be the case, but I still think that the problem was that McLaren didn't do well on that track for many reasons. Red Bull has stepped up their upgrades. Also, Red Bull does better on high speed tracks, and McLaren doesn't do as well
Medium
on high
speed
speed
as
tracks,
well.
medium speed, and also the max factor. So I think it's a bunch of things. But there's still some credibility to the idea that maybe they were cheating and they've taken it off, but I'm not sure. What do you think, Afolabi? Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. I think I saw something on Twitter as well that spoke about some regulation about the plank and the skid block sometime in Canada. So I think the teams that are running very, very low ride heights need to watch
Yeah.
out. They need to watch out.
But
The
also they put
Ferrari,
something in there about the brakes and the cooling too. And I
the
think that
brakes
might
and the
be a
cooling
McLaren.
as well. And of course, and McLaren will be public enemy number one for this. They need to watch
Yeah.
out for that.
And
But
Horner said something which is interesting. Horner said I wasn't surprised by our pace. I was more surprised by McLaren's lack of pace. He was being funny. So maybe he said something to FIA, and FIA made a directive. And when that directive was a warning to McLaren, and then McLaren altered their car. It's possible. We don't know. All of this is
yes,
conjecture.
it is.
What do you
It is.
think?
What I wanted to say was there's going to be a lot of thermal management issues because of the brakes. There's going to be a lot of load on the brakes. So all the teams have to get their cooling or up to speed so that the brakes don't overheat because of the
Yeah.
kind of circuit we have in Monaco. That's what
Yeah.
I wanted to say.
But also in general, Red Bull has done a good job. They've
Oh, yeah,
changed
sure.
their suspension. The suspension plays a lot with back grip. Okay, they have a new floor in line with that suspension, and then they also have inlet and outlet changes. See, I did my study AI notes. Also, also the brake duct. So it seems like Red Bull has improved their aero, and I think they're going to be very dangerous second half of the
Yeah,
season
sure.
after, especially after Spain, when these guys McLaren have to get rid of their front wing, and then these guys are going to be exposed. We're going to realize that Norris and Piastri, they're like Kule said, they're not rubbish. It's just that they're not really F1 drivers. They're Uber drivers. Uber drivers. It's like giving a small child a rocket ship. They win, but then now that they lose their rockets, they have to raise the real boys. What do you think, Kule?
Well, McLaren and Ferrari again are notorious for these
I'm being funny.
issues around the car.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Around their cars, they're, the usual suspects when it comes to tinkering with the cars that are creating problems, especially McLaren.
Do you think that these guys were cheating and maybe now they've stepped back because the FIA is keeping a close eye on them, or do you think it's just that Red Bull has stepped up their game, or what do you think is the reason for their success so far this year? Yeah.
I wouldn't go so far to say Red Bull are cheating.
No, not Red Bull.
They might have,
McLaren.
they
McLaren was the tire
McLaren.
brand.
I wouldn't say that I think they try to take things right to the edge. And when they do take it to the edge, I think sometimes they don't really know whether they're cheating or not. I think they're just
Yeah,
trying to make that car
gray
better.
areas. Gray areas. Yeah, yeah.
There appears to be a
Disconnection.
very fine line between set
really
up on the edge and cheating. There's a fine line.
But let Kunle finish. Hold on. You were right. Yeah.
No, I'm saying that sometimes there's a very thin line between cheating and getting your optimum performance levels. So you have to tread softly so that you
gray
area. Gray area.
So we use that as a stepping for Lorato. We're almost done, but we were talking about the technical heading into before Imola. There was a technical directive which said which basically clarified some rules about the tires. And it's strange that after that happened, it was Red Bull that did the inquiry. They asked the FIA some questions about tires and also planks. I think they just put the planks thing in there as a distraction so people don't know they're talking about McLaren, because McLaren is not about the planks. So they said, what's going on with the tires? That's what what's his name said, Horner. And there's a directive, and they made some clarification on the rules. And they're not going to show us what the clarifications are. So the directive made some rules, and if this happens, you're going to be penalized. And all of a sudden, especially with cooling and the brake ducts, and all of a sudden there's supposedly a drop in performance by McLaren, especially by Piastri, who had serious tire drag. So this falls in line with the idea that maybe whatever their advantages, they took it off. I'm not saying that's what they did, but that counts as evidence towards it. Or it could just be the other thing in which Red Bull brought in adjustments. They've improved their rear suspension. They've improved their floor. So they now have more rear grip, less tire drag. And maybe that's explaining why their race pace was so good. Or it could be a combination of a bunch of things. And maybe to some extent, What do you think?
It could be a combination of both. Because I mean, even with whatever advantages that McLaren had, I mean, they still sort of like ended up on pole, but we know exactly how marginal these calls are between, like how marginal it's been between Max, Piastri, and Norris in the front row every time when they're in Q3. Well, I think any improvements that are made by Red Bull will definitely show up. But because also Max knows how to push the car beyond whatever engineering limits that are presented. But we also know that Red Bull is very good at sort of this setting up a car for a particular race, from all the way from FP1 to Q3. They make gradual improvements. Even if those improvements sort of only seem to always lean towards benefiting Max, as we always state, but they know exactly how to do that, how to get the car into the right window, and that's how we saw him get pole even a couple of weeks ago, a couple of sessions ago. So I think there are sort of like those development changes that are happening, that are affecting McLaren's advantage, and also the fact that the drivers are also sort of racing each other as well, which is going to play nicely into Max's hands as well, as they take away points from each other. And then I think there's all those things, and we are expecting also changes in the flexi wing rules in a couple of weeks time as well. So we should see also if that's going to undercut McLaren's advantage that they've been enjoying thus far in the season. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, to me, it looks like I'm just looking at the patterns. I'm not looking at the theory. It's diminishing returns for McLaren, and they had their advantage, and they didn't use their advantage to get rid of Verstappen so that he can't catch up second part of the year. These guys might be in real trouble, especially since they have two drivers. Personally, this is going to sound controversial. I think they should get rid of both of those drivers and get someone like Leclerc or what's his name, Russell, because those guys are showing that they're bottling it. And also, it's been proven now you can't have two number one drivers. I don't think that Piastri or Norris are top 5 drivers in F1. With all cars being equal, I don't think so. What do you think, Lorato? I don't think they're in the top 5. My top 5 are Verstappen, Leclerc, what's his name? Russell. So who else? Russell, maybe. So then maybe Norris and those guys can come in. Even Gasly, all these guys, I think are actually Gasly is actually a better driver than those two guys. And then you're looking at guys like what's his name, Hamilton. Even Hamilton, I'm beginning to wonder just how good those guys are. We know that Piastri is good because he won F2, F3, but I don't think at his age right now he's at the same level. So I think those guys, one of them may be in the top 5 for drivers, maybe. Then you've got even Sainz. Yeah. Even Sainz is better than these guys. I'm serious. I'm not joking. What do you think, Lorenzo? Then we'll go to Kunle. What are you going to say?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, but I think Piastri with the improvements that he's making.
Yeah, but even as I look at now, Piastri is a car manager, which means if you give him a good car, he drives perfectly. Sure. But I'm wondering what he would do if he was driving. Oh, and don't forget Alonso too. Alonso's better than them. You get my point.
Yeah, if you were to be driving with the Red Bull, for example,
cool car.
That would tell us how well he's able to adapt and handle.
I don't think he did because he's even struggling. Even Piastri is struggling. Piastri and Norris are struggling with handling the limit of the MCL39. They're not able to push it to its limit. So, for example, Max Verstappen could extract another 0.2 of a second per lap off of that MCL39. You see what I'm saying? Because Piastri's making less mistakes, but he's not pushing it to the limit. Then Norris is pushing it to the limit because he has more talent than Piastri, but then he's making mistakes because he's pushing it to the limit. So neither of them is actually unlocking the full potential of that car. If you gave that car to Alonso, he would extract everything from it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
So maybe in 3 years Norris can do that. But you have to remember when guys like Lewis Hamilton and not Norris, Piastri, when guys like Lewis Hamilton and Alonso came, as soon as they came into F1, they already could extract everything out of a car.
Out of a car, I get what you're saying.
So it shows me that Piastri is just what you call, he maximizes his own potential, but I think he has a lower ceiling than even Norris and those guys. His ceiling for talent is not as high. Piastri is sort of like a Prost versus Senna. Prost is very exact. Senna has more talent, but he's wilder. What do you think, Kunle? You were going to say something, Kunle?
No, I'd already said, you already said it for me, which was that I thought also Alonso was highly underrated, and I think he's probably better than those two McLaren drivers.
Oh yeah. So remember 2 years ago, 2023, when Aston Martin had a good car, Alonso came fourth in the drivers in 2023. It's just that the car dropped. You get my point. And that was his first year at Aston Martin. He was coming fourth. Yeah, it's just that he doesn't have the car. So we'll head out now. What are your last